The Third Crusade failed in its major objective, the capture of Jerusalem. After a year's unproductive skirmishing, Richard made a 3-year truce with Saladin that permitted the Crusaders to hold Acre. The Christians retained Jaffa and a thin coastal strip that gave Christian pilgrims free access to the holy places. During the Crusade, Richard is said to have insulted Leopold V of Austria by stamping his standard into the dirt. It was an act Richard was to regret. For Richard, the Crusade was now over, and he began the homeward journey to England. Put ashore by bad weather, he now found himself in Austria, the home of Leopold V. Richard tried to disguise himself as a peasant, but he was recognized and captured by Leopold, who in turn handed him over to the Emperor Henry VI of Germany and imprisoned in the castle of Dürnstein. Richard spent over a year in prison, and rumours spread throughout England over the missing king. There is a legend that Richard was found by his devoted troubadour Blondel, who travelled Europe singing a ballad outside each castle and waiting for a reply that only the king knew. Richard was released only on the transfer of literally a king's ransom. The colossal sum of 150,000 marks was demanded, an amount equivalent to 34 tons in silver. The raising of the ransom money was one of the most remarkable fiscal measures of the 12th century and gives striking proof of the prosperity of England at that time. Richard returned only briefly to England to suppress a revolt raised against him by his brother, the notorious Prince John, and to raise yet more funds. Richard now wanted to win back many of the French provinces lost while he was on crusade. For such a brave and noble man, King Richard's death came about in a rather strange way. In Chalus, Aquitaine, a peasant ploughing fields came upon a treasure. This treasure consisted of some gold statues and coins. The feudal lord claimed the treasure, and in turn Richard claimed the treasure from the lord. When the lord refused to hand it over, it prompted Richard to siege the village. Now, during the siege, Richard was riding close to the castle without the protection of full armour. He spotted an archer with bow in hand on the wall, aiming a shot at him. It is said that Richard paused to applaud the bowman. He was struck in the shoulder with the arrow. Infection set in, and Richard the Lionheart died on April the 6th, 1199. He was buried in the Fontevraud Abbey in Anjou, France. So, part 4, The Warlords, was my final appearance as King Richard in Doctor Who. I did, however, return to Doctor Who one final time as Scaroth, Last of the Jaggeroth, alongside Tom Baker in the 1979 story City of Death. I remember a lot about this production because it was much more recent, frankly. It was an extraordinary part to play because it was someone who took part in every single aspect of the history of the country, and not in the country, of the world. He was always there in some different guise, and some of you remember there's a flash sequence in the last episode when he lots and lots of his characterizations just flash before you, but I think there were three main ones actually in the story itself. My favourite was Count Scarlione. Lovely costume and all that. And I got the part, I think, of Scaroth because Michael Hayes, the director, who'd also been a director, one of the directors on An Age of Kings, liked me very much and said, I think you'd look funny with green spaghetti on your face. And that's when Scaroth was being Scaroth in the very beginning of time. The makeup did look like a great pile of green spaghetti, and it was very difficult getting the coat and the jacket and the shirt and all round it, so we had to have a special one made for when he emerged as the creature. But I'm reminded, many years later, I did the film of The Empire Strikes Back, a Star Wars film, and in that, of course, is Darth Vader, the great Darth Vader. Well, it could have been anybody under that plastic carapace of dark Darth Vader. In fact, it was an actor, and as Scaroth, it could have been anybody underneath that, because not a lot of dialogue came out of Scaroth. So that's one of my more anonymous impersonations, was the actual Scaroth, as opposed to Scarleone and the other people. The makeup session for that was a very unpleasant business. It was putting a great big plastic mask all over my face, and you had to keep stick it so that it didn't move, and it was extremely uncomfortable, but not so uncomfortable as my my makeup in the Indiana Jones film, which I did, in which my face was blown away over about 15 seconds. Some of you may remember that.
What is happening to me?
I very much regretted not meeting Douglas Adams and Graham Williams on that particular Doctor Who story. Their presence was known about, but they didn't actually appear whenever I was there. They did actually go out to Paris for the shooting of the sequence, a short sequence in Paris, which some lucky people did, and I didn't go to that, so that's why I didn't actually meet them. Tom Baker is a fine man, a wonderful voice and very interesting, eccentric presence. For my money, he was the most interesting of the Doctor Who's. Bill Pertwee, John Pertwee too, in his way, very different. But Tom Baker, he's really truly wild, and those great eyes of his, and a wonderful, searing sense of humour, and a hard worker. Wow, what a hard worker. I first met him on a film called Nicholas and Alexandra, which we filmed in, where did we film it? In Zagreb, my particular sequences, and he was playing Rasputin, of course, and he was simply wonderful in that. And I think because of his Rasputin, his sort of wild craziness in that, was one of the reasons he got the part of Doctor Who. That's only my theory, so don't quote me.